exploitation of counterterrorism frameworks that emerged in the aftermath of 9/11 to repress and violate rights domestically. As the international community took draconian measures and what we might call a security-first, human rights-light approach to counterterrorism, human rights protections and obligations fell to the wayside. And around the world, what do we see? Well, what we see is civil society questioning the legitimacy of counterterrorism measures on human rights ground, and they've been silenced. They've been labeled as terrorists, extremists, or as broad threats to national security. Such practices, in my view, they undermine the rule of law, they distort governance, and they make us less safe and less secure. Since my mandate's inception in 2005, 66% of all the relevant communications sent to governments have related to a misuse of counterterrorism policies on civil society. This is both bad counterterrorism and bad human rights practice simultaneously. Fundamental and precious rights to expression, assembly, participation in public affairs, and the important and essential belief of practicing one's own religious faith are under ferocious attack from counterterrorism across the globe. And in the most egregious instances, what we see is civil society actors being subject to torture, arbitrary and secret detention, enforced disappearances, and illegal deportation. One striking trend that I see is that governments are adopting broad and overly vague definitions of terrorism and violent extremism that are then invoked arbitrarily to designate and silence individuals at their own choosing. And so the absence of an internationally agreed definition of terrorism and violent extremism exacerbates and prolongs these abuses. What we see are expansive definitions of terrorism being coupled with the criminalization of a wide set of acts, such as support to terrorism, often without the required intent or danger that the act will lead to the actual commission of an actual act of violence. Some states consider mere verbal criticism of the state as terrorism. Others consider defending human rights or protecting women or children's rights or even victims of terrorism's rights as terrorism itself. Increasingly, states are turning their regulatory focus on what I call the pre-criminal or pre-terrorist space, invoking the fluid interaction of the criminal with social, religious, and administrative regulation. And this has led some states, under the guise of countering violent extremism, to systematically target religious and ethnic minorities, including members of the Church of Scientology, Jehovah's Witnesses, Baptists, Uyghurs, and Ahmadis.